Well, as I told you the other day, when you lose some games, there's gets to be a feeling of team giving up, team doing this. We're so far from that, it's scary. All we're focused on now is the next game. And we've got big games. I told you we're going to have big games down the stretch 2 weeks ago. They're all coming and they're all here. And we're going to come out and play harder and hopefully better. Hopefully we're going to shoot the ball better. We did not get up to a great start the other day. And we've got to do a better job of that. Not only is Purdue one of the best teams in the Big Ten, in fact, I said at the preseason I thought they were the best team. I thought Illinois is kind of bounced up to being, everybody's good, but Purdue, even though they've had a few setbacks, I think top to bottom, they've got the most players back. They've got a very good coach. They've got depth at every position, size. They got shooting ability, and they have solid point guard plays. And I think that's one of the things that gets understated the most is their point guards just play their role. They get the ball to Sasha, they get the ball into the post to Edie and of course Williams, and there's no question about it that Ivy has made himself a very talented player. As you look in the Big Ten right now, we've got Ivy there, we've got Davidson, we've got the guys from Purdue. We've got a conference that has a lot of top players in the country that are being looked at for the Wooden Award, and Jaden Ivey is definitely one of them. So shooter like Sasha, athlete, which is more like a Dwayne Wade type athlete, almost plays a little bit, like the kid from the Lakers. I mean, he's so athletic. They play him at the point, they play him at the 2, play him at the 3, they play him at a variety of different positions. And yet they've got 4 guys in double figures, so it's about as balanced a team as we'll play. And no question, we're going to have to play our best basketball to win it, and that's what we're going to try to do. Questions?
You talked about at times this year the leadership in games sometimes isn't what it needs to be. But when it's in a situation like this, kind of as you said, things feel like they're kind of going the wrong direction. Is it different? Is that leadership different, or do you feel like you have the guys that can handle that and are able to kind of rally?
I don't know if anybody can handle anything anymore because there's so much thrown at these guys. But I feel like I know when a team is down. We had an early morning walkthrough. Yesterday was off, so today's a long day, and the energy at practice was great. I thought, we'll have a meeting tonight, trying to cover a lot of things, and I don't think we have great leadership, but there's a million teams that don't have great leadership right now. I think we have great guys. And what I told the great guys is they've got to be great followers, great teammates, and we got to rally together as a group, since we don't have one individual that rallies everybody. And that's what we're working on. That's what we're trying to do. So I didn't think we did a good job of that at Iowa. I thought we did a good job of it at Illinois. I thought we've been doing a better job of it, and we'll see what we do this week.
You mentioned after that game about potential for changes. How much does the short prep time between games complicate that, and how much, with what's happened defensively with this team for much of the year, do you kind of take that into mind when making changes to not upset the apple cart? Maybe?
Well, not for much of the year. Let me straighten that out. As I said, we're in the top 2 or 3 defensively right now, so that means for most of the year we've been good. The last 4 or 5 games we have not been as good, and part of that is the people we're playing. Part of that is, I think, the way we're playing. So every day right now there's changes could be made. What you do is you give guys confidence by accepting some things, and some things will not be accepted. And so they know right now that every practice is going to get evaluated, and there's a reason that we've lost some games. We haven't shot the ball as well. We understand that. That is not a problem as far as having guys working on it or doing what they're supposed to do. I have no qualms about any of the shooters as far as what they're doing. The turnovers have gotten a little better. I'd say the three areas that we've really fallen back on is defensive rebounding, free throws, not shooting, getting there. We're leading the league in free throw shooting. We're just not getting enough. We're not getting enough because we don't have the post presence that we need to have and getting the ball in there. That's number two. And of course, making threes would be number three. So we've got three areas that we've got to continue to work on. As we do that, just so you know that it hasn't been all year, I think we're 1 or 2 in the conference in three-point field goal shooting. So sometimes stats don't make sense, but in the most critical stats that I think most teams go through, what is their field goal shooting? What is their field goal defensive shooting? What against? What is their three-point shooting? What is their three-point field goal percentage against? Rebounding is one that's critical. We're in the middle of the pack there, but defensive rebounding, I think we're 10th, and that would be a bad situation for us. Free throw shooting, we're great. We're not getting to the line enough. We have to do a better job of that, and that's what we're working on.
Tom, something that's come up, seems like the last couple of games from you and your players is kind of these runs and kind of struggling to go on runs or kind of sustain them once you go. How much of an issue have you seen that with his team? How do you address it? How do you improve that?
Yeah, other teams have gone on runs like we're 10 down and all of a sudden they hit 2 big threes, but sometimes you got to give some credit to the opponent. The opponent, I mean, we're playing some good people right now. Some teams are on a high and we're on a low, just like early in the season we were on a high and some teams were on a low. So you address it by continue to grind, continue to work, continue to try to make sure kids are confident in what they're doing, because I think kids lose their confidence pretty easily, but continue to demand that they have to do what we have to do to win. But it's a perfect example of how hard it is. I don't know, those of you that were at that game, did it feel like they shot 60% from the field and 70% from the three, and they shot 43% from the field and 42% from the three? And just as an example, Purdue is one of the best teams. Michigan's a very good defensive team. Some of those teams are getting them a 44, 45, 46 for the year. And it's just, the way they've come in bunches has been true. And that's where I think we need somebody on the floor to grab the guys and maybe stop that run. And that has not been the case. But the overall defense and things that we've gone through has not been quite as dramatic as you may think. If we were winning a couple of those games, we'd say, hey, 43%, no big deal. So I wouldn't say our defense has been terrible. I'd say the runs we haven't gotten enough offensive runs because we're not running enough. And part of that goes back to that defensive rebounding and getting clean rebounds.
Tom, you seem to be really encouraged by Gabe and the shooting today. I don't know if you noticed that, but what does it mean to encourage these guys in a special way based on what individual thing they may be going through?
Well, as you know, Lindsey, more than ever, shooting is a psychological thing as much as it is a fundamental thing or a skill thing. And shooters and pitchers and quarterbacks and kickers, those are the guys that sometimes struggle the most mentally with things. Gabe and Max called me last night. They came in early this morning and shot together. We had a meeting, went through some film work together, looked at some of their big games when they made shots, look at some of their games when they didn't make shots, see if we could spot anything, couple things on Gabe's. But even today, I didn't think Max was looking for a shot. That's pretty normal if you're not real comfortable. But I told him as long as I'm here, he's open, he's got to shoot it. And the same with Gabe. And, I did think in the last game, it was the first time, I didn't think Gabe was as ready to shoot, and he kind of jackknifed some of his shots. So that's one thing we picked up. We talked about it. I thought today he shot it as well as you need to shoot it. So we're we're doing that. We're looking at those 2 point guards together a little bit. We'll do some of that, but in general, if a player isn't playing well and he's working his tail off every day and he's doing everything he's got to do, he's not going to get a short leash. He's going to get a real long leash. If a guy isn't doing the things you need to do and not working on the things he needs to work on, then he's going to get a much shorter leash, and that's kind of the way it is. But those two guys, you know what? I'm banking on them and betting on them because they both have done the things they need to do to get better, and I think they will get better. And it was just, you have 5 games to go, but the Rutgers game, Gabe goes 7 for 9, I think, from the 3, or he shot it very, very well, and when you do that, you get guarded a little differently too. And I'm telling you, Max gets guarded. He got guarded in that Illinois game, no matter where he went. So some of it is that too. The opposition, we played some very good teams, and they deserve some of that credit too.
Thank you. I guess going off that, Tom, with Gabe, these last couple weeks specifically, I mean, as a guy you've been around for 4 years, you look in his eye, has he been remaining the course sort of mentally,
Yeah.
or has it been a guy you gotta breathe?
Yeah, I thought once in a while in a game, I see that empty look on a couple of those guys, a freshman, Jaden, and sometimes Max, you see that empty look. I mean, that's normal. I mean, I bet you guys saw it on Michael Jordan when he was early, that is the nature of the beast, although Michael didn't have to put up with all the social media stuff these guys do. So, yeah, it gets to them once in a while, and they understand that they need to shoot the ball better. But what I liked about both of them is they don't duck it. They own it. And you know what? That's what you got to do. You got to own your issues. I own mine. We got to play better. We got to do a better job in a couple areas. But at the same time, we've been an eyelash away from being really, really good. And I got to make sure people don't think like sometimes you think. And I say that not disrespectfully. I just meant, when you think our defense has been bad for a long time and you look at the stuff, and then a lot of other people's defense is bad. And, what's happened to us, I think our defense is a little worse. We were in the low 40s, 39, and now all of a sudden we're 41 in the conference. That's not a monstrous difference. Where it's been a monstrous difference has been in our offense. And our offense has not been as productive. Our break has not been as good, and that's maybe, and just think about this too. There's not a guy in America except for maybe Travis Walton, Tum Nairn, whose defense or offense isn't affected by their offense. Gary Harris was one that, could miss some shots and still check. I've been amazed how well Max has done. Considering he's a freshman, considering he's playing a lot of minutes, and considering that it's got to be disappointing not to see shots go in, but he has not let that affect the defensive end, which I'm, kind of really proud of him about and for. And I think part of his maturity is the reason why, Gabe, never been a great defender. I think it's affecting his rebounding, and so he doesn't get to the offensive glass. When he doesn't get to the offensive glass, he doesn't get to the free throw line. I think in the last 5 games, Gabe has gotten there. Free throw line, he's 6 for 6. I think Marcus is 8 for 8, and Joey's 9 for 9. In 5 games, that's just not enough free throws, and yet they're shooting the daylights out of them. So that's why I say what I say.
When you have those, when we moved AJ in, for example, the point flip and almost like a plug and play, you have to kind of think in 1 or 2s, like 2 guys, because they play next to each other so much on the block. The consistency and communication that goes into that when you think about decisions.
Repeat the beginning of that.
So, can you just go plug and play with guys? Like, could you put 1 for 1, or you have to put the...
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
And that's difficult to do. I mean, I can plug and play Gabe at the 2 or the 3, or Max at the 2 or 3, or Jaden at the 2 or 3. I can plug and play Joey at the 4 or 5, or those guys. When you start plugging and playing 1 to 2 or 1 to 3, little different, but at the same time, a quarterback should know everybody's position, but the timing of those things is a little off. I thought they've handled it pretty well, and we just started working on that, where we're at least getting them some practice time together. You know, there's not as much practice time as you can imagine. I mean, that's the hardest part of this thing, especially the way it gets later in the season. And that's one of the reasons I am disappointed in how the Big Ten does that. You know, you think we got 3 first-time preps at the end. So instead of maybe working on things that you could, you gotta prep for the team you're playing. And when they're first-time preps, you know, like that thing next week from Michigan, late night game to Columbus, first-time prep, that does make it a little more difficult. But would I have started that earlier? Would I have done that in the preseason? You know, I never thought that we'd have any issues, because I like our depth. I like the way the depth is. And when those two start shooting better, I think you're going to see our team change. But the energy level of getting to the offensive boards, getting fouled more, getting on the break where you can get fouled more, that's been effective too. So instead of shooting 20 free throws a game, which would be even low but normal, I think we're at 13 and a half in the last 5 games. So you're shooting 82 or 84%, but you're not taking advantage of it. And that's what we got to do a better job of.
How difficult is it to prepare for a team with 2 really good centers in Zach Edey and Travion Williamson, especially with their distinct play style? Does that pose any challenges?
Hey, have you seen Edey in person yet?
Not yet.
You know, like we told Mark Montgomery in our staff meeting, you know, he says, well, how big is he? And I said, well, here. I turned on the Illinois-Purdue game. And he says, who's that guarding him? I said, that looks like me, doesn't it? The problem is, it's Kofi. You know, I mean, there's that much difference. And so, yeah, it creates some problems. But hopefully we can create some problems for him, too. You know, last year, the game here will go down as one of the changing points in the season for me, for a variety of reasons. But it was a game we had a 16-point lead and played pretty damn well, and then had a 5-point lead late and found a way not to win the game. Had a few free throw situations, but at the same time, when I look at that, I also looked at the game down there. We played pretty well. The problem is, I think Edey's gotten better. I think Travion is he might be the best passing big man in college basketball. And not just this year, but for a few years. I mean, you've seen these passes and those passes and the wraparound passes and behind the back passes. And that's the problem. You can't afford to dig much because he can find everybody. But if you try to handle him one-on-one, he's a load. So they're 2 completely different players, but 2 similar in the fact that I think they're 2 and 3 in scoring on their team. I think they're 1 and 2 in assists on their team. I think they're 1 and 2 in rebounds on their team. You don't see that very often in the modern day basketball, you know. Big men are supposed to be non-existent. So, yeah, they create some problems, but if you sag too much off Sasha, he can make shots from everywhere. And those point guards are just very solid, very, very solid. And, of course, Ivy is he's a very good player. Yeah, he too. You know, if you want to look at some things, I mean, he's moved up to one of the top 2 or 3 players in the draft. And his last 5 games, he's shooting, I think, 17% from the 3. So he too, you know, has gone through a little bit of struggles in that. The difference is he can get to their hole so well. He's so athletic that he can still make up for it. But in his case, he's averaging 17 a game, but I think he's averaging 9 or 10 free throws a game, and making 7 or 8. So of his 17 points, almost half of them are from the free throw line. And so those are a lot of unique stats. But Matt has done a great job. They've got everybody back. They've added one freshman that we've recruited a little bit that plays about 10 minutes a game. Other than that, they've got two guys that started last year that aren't even playing. So that's why they're the best team. I think they're the most well-coached team. I think they're the most solid team, and I think they're the most experienced team playing together. Illinois' got older team maybe, but as far as guys that have played together, Purdue is the real deal, and I think has a great shot to get to a Final Four.
With this difficult stretch right now, how have you guys been able to kind of stay loose right now?
Stay loose, that's overrated. You know, we're not tight, but we're not loose, but we're where you should be. Disappointed that we lost a couple of games. I wouldn't say a bunch of games, because as I told you, I think I know where we were when we won 9 in a row. I think I know where we are now. The difference is winning breeds a little bit of winning, but losing breeds a lot of losing. You know, it's harder to deal with losing because you got so many people, especially after you've been winning. But, you know, I think the one thing that has been good within our family is I was honest with them when we, you know, and here I came in and said, hey, you know, pump the brakes a little bit, you know, schedule this, that. Don't be overexcited. That was not the message to them. It was a lot stronger message. So they know where they are, and that's the one advantage I think I have in my coaching career is I've always been honest with the players. You know, when I think we should win a game, I tell them. I said, oh, we can lose it, but I think we're good enough to win this game. When I think it's going to be we're going to have to play great to win, I tell them. When I think that we've won games, I don't celebrate in the locker room if we didn't play good. And there's been a couple of times that I didn't go off in the locker room if we lost because we played good. I think I'm to that point in my career where I can keep that balance a little better than people think. And so I think my players know exactly where we are. I think they're disappointed. They should be disappointed. And I told them, own it. Own it. You know, do not think, you know, you're going to fool the media, the fans, you know. Hey, we're okay. No, you're not. You're dying inside. You know what? It's been hard, but I'm going to work my way through it. That's a better way to look at it. You know what? I'm not shooting bad. You know what? I am shooting bad. I got to own that. I think they tell you in any part of life, you know, you don't get better until you admit what you're not doing well. And that's okay, you know. This day and age, it's like a sin to admit that you're struggling, or a sin. I don't think we're struggling in as many areas as you think. I think we're struggling in a couple of them that's affecting those areas.
Not to make too big of a deal out of it, but we saw Keon in the first half for the first time the other night. Does that speak to maybe your frustration in the moment? Does it speak to some development from him, maybe both? Just wondering.
You know, the one thing I've always liked about the football players I've had, and I've had, you know, Lorenzo Guest was there today for a while early, and I've had, you know, some really good guys, meaning Matt Trennan, you know, started in the Final Four team, but it took him a couple of years, you know. I will say this, I told Mel this, I've been really impressed with Keon because he picks up the scout team stuff, which means you got to learn 3 different, sometimes 4 different teams in like 9 days. And it's hard enough for everybody else. He picks it up. He picks up stuff quick. He competes. And he is another level athlete. It's been really good. And what I'm really happy about, and I'm sure you can ask Max and Gabe, and he's been a really good teammate. I mean, he competes. He's trying to help guys get better. And I just felt in that game, and maybe in this game, if we need somebody for some stretches to guard somebody, his offense is not bad. But the whole reason he'll play if other people aren't competing at the level they need to compete at. In that game, I just felt like we were a step slow for a lot of reasons. Put him in and he did okay for a little bit, but probably not going to see a steady diet of him. But someday he has a chance to be one of the better two-way players, I think, in college sports. I really do.
Does that surprise you at all?
Pardon?
Does that surprise you at all?
Not totally, because, I recruited him with Mel. I saw him play a lot on film because it was COVID, and I've seen him get 30-point games and that. I think what surprised me is his strength and his athleticism, the combination of the two. He can do some things, but what did surprise me is his shot from range. If he worked on it, but I think him and Max have become close. He's become good friends with a lot of the players, and I just appreciate that he kind of keeps his mouth shut and does his job. Don't plan on seeing a steady diet of him, at least this year, but here and there, could be.
Tom, I'm sure it's not, I can guess it's probably not high on your radar, but your next win will tie you with Bobby Knight for most overall wins for a Big Ten coach. Is that I know you're not thinking about it right now in this moment, but if you get a second to kind of process something like that, what does it mean to you? Or
Well,
have you thought
I've
about
had that for 3 or 4 games now.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a bad omen, so let's play Bob for something instead of me blaming Tom. No, it isn't a big deal to me. It's a big deal because I have incredible respect for the guys that I came up with, that I idolized. Bobby Knight was in the top of that list, John Wooden when I was at Northern Michigan, sure, but I just didn't know enough then. But Bobby Knight, when I got to Michigan State, Gene Cady, Clem Haskins, those were the guys that I really idolized, and to even be talked about in the same way. Now I think things have changed. We play more games. I don't know all the statistics to everything. I really haven't looked it up. I know this: we've won 1 national championship, and he's won 3. That would be the interesting one I'd like to capture. But it just means there's probably a lot of coaches got a lot more wins than I got. They just didn't stay at the same place. So there's a part of me that humbly feels like I don't deserve to break a record that he set. But I don't look at that. I don't coach for that. I just, right now, I want to get this team better. I know that's a humbling answer, and probably one you're thinking, yeah, he goes home and thinks of it. I don't. I haven't thought about it at all. I'm disappointed that we didn't get another win. I'm not disappointed in, Bob should keep his record for as long as he can. There's other records that he's got that'll last forever. I didn't like Bobby Knight when I came here. I love Bobby Knight. I just felt like, oh yeah, maybe it didn't end quite the way you wanted to, but what he stood for, I'll never forget the first day I got the job. He called, told me, as long as I do it the right way, don't cheat, this and that, he's gonna support me. And after we beat him a few times, he did just that. And so my respect for him is off the charts. I hope we win another game that has nothing to do with Bob. I hope it has everything to do with my players. And anytime you're in a conversation in any way with any one of those 3 guys that were in our league, along with Judd, it's an honor.
Anything else, guys?
Thanks, guys.